Oregon, a land of adventure and awe, a treasure.
That was a great take.
Majestic and hidden. A state that calls out for exploration and experience. The journey of discovery begins now. From KGW, this is Grants Getaways.
Hi there, I'm Grant McComey, your host for KGW's Grants Getaways, as we discover Oregon's people, places, and outdoor adventures. You know, when I was a boy, I fell in love with long distance. Not the telephone kind, but the dust-filled lanes and back roads that enticed a small-town kid to explore his home region now more than 50 years ago. Along the way, I made a discovery of treasure that's measured in the memories of so many interesting people, fascinating places, and intriguing outdoor adventures. These days, my greatest pleasure comes from sharing with you each week. And this week on Grants Getaways, we travel to the rugged edge of Oregon, a wild stretch of coastline called the Cape Perpetua National Scenic Area. And it's dawn's first light for a bit of sage-grouse romance at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. And it's a gathering of eagles, more than 100 of them, a wintertime eagle convocation smack in the middle of the Willamette Valley. But first, it's wintertime casting and catching 10-pound ocean-going rainbow trout. We learn all about pocket water steelhead.
This is the kind of days you like to be on the water and the sun shining, where you don't have to wear a rain jacket.
Mark Anderson says pocket water steelheading demands scrambling and rambling down and then back up steep-sloped river canyons, where you feel more mountain goat than two-footed angler. Keep moving, he likes to say. It's best way to find the eager biters.
There we go. Oh, he's a big buck. Yeah, he's a big buck. Yeah, it's a nice big buck, big native. He must have been sitting there the whole, whoa, oh. Bobber went down and he was there, just sitting right there. Oh man, he just twisted right off.
That's exciting.
We got one.
Bobber went down. Down and gone in a heartbeat. But Anderson says true fishermen are never down and out when it comes to pocket water steelhead.
The very top of that hole where it riffles before it levels off and smooths out. That's pocket water in my mind.
He casts into a river's hidden places where the water narrows and races to reach deep holes that hold big fish.
Because fish will come in and they'll tuck in at the top end of that hole because it has cover for them, for one, so they feel safe.
He entices fish to bite colorful, hand-tied, feather-covered jigs that ride the river under a simple bobber.
You know, what I like about your rigging is how simple it is.
Yeah.
You really have gone for, back to basics.
Yeah.
It's a lure, it's some leader, it's a bobber and a stopper, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody can do this.
Oh, sure.
The rig splashes into milk-white foam and down the river's current. It is pocket water steelhead fishing at its finest.
And I love it, too. It's made in Oregon.
That's important.
It's made in Oregon, exactly. Support the local shops.
Mark has spent decades crafting and tying thousands of his creations based upon a lifetime of fishing experience, what he calls thinking like a fish.
I think the first thing they see is the color. And the color attracts them, and it's the action and the presentation. So shrimp and pink is just perennial favorites for steelhead salmon trout.
Anderson is a big believer in feathered jigs and loves to spread the word about how it's done.
This is my favorite. The shrimp color is just gorgeous.
He even made a DVD program to show others how it's done.
Called The Art of the Jig. That was probably the biggest project I've ever done. Spotting a fish, casting to it, and getting it and hooking it, and showing how that all can be done, all tied together.
His fishing friends range across the world, tied together by a common appreciation for this native Oregonian's work. It seems no matter the water, fish are just crazy eager to bite an Anderson jig when it comes into view.
Well, the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So you can tell the story, but if you have one picture, it kind of completes it. Everybody loves to share their fish. The bigger the fish, the bigger the story, you know? Yeah, it's pretty neat, really.
Back on the river, Stephen Randolph thinks pocket water steelheading is pretty neat too.
That was fantastic. Awesome. That was epic. Wow. That's my first native.
I would think there'd be at least 1 or 2 fish tucked in here.
Anderson rarely spends more than 30 minutes at each spot because more pocket water steelhead wait around each bend.
Should be holding right in there, right on the other side of that current. That's where I want to be. Then pull back on the float here. I want to slow down that jig ever so slightly. That's where they should be, right there. There he is. Yeah, there he is. I never really quit. I always have a rod with me that has a jig on it for steelhead in April all the way into May. Sometimes that'll go clear into June, you'll catch them. So, yeah.
It's a wild steelhead, about 8 pounds. He quickly releases the fish.
There we go. That was great. Maybe we'll get another one.
That's a promise that makes the adventure worthwhile. So make some time and find your own pocket water steelhead.
This spot looks great.
Stay with us. We travel to the rugged edge of Oregon, a wild stretch of coastline called the Cape Perpetua National Scenic Area, when Grants Getaways continues. In winter, except for wind and surf, the coast slows down. Easy to understand. Few distractions, few folks around, especially along Oregon's rugged side of life. Over 40 miles of central coastline, starting at Walport, on a stretch marked by steep headlands, jagged volcanic outcrops, and scenic drama.
The sheer beauty. Where else? I mean, probably the most photogenic lighthouse in the world is Hasita Head. Who could ever get tired of that? It's such a beautiful, unique area. Climbing up on the trails, the overlooks, the viewpoints, the rocky shorelines. No matter where you travel in the world, this is still one of the most scenic areas. There's clamming, there's crabbing, there's hiking. We have one of the most unique new park developments now called Beaver Creek State Natural Area. All the waysides have great things. It's one of the most spectacular areas for watching the waves and all the storm activity.
It is so significant a place, 2,700 acres of massive Cape Perpetua are designated National Scenic Area. 2 miles south of Yachats, a visitor center that's open daily.
The coast is the most dramatic part. It's the part that captures your attention first. And yet if you turn and look the other way, you've got this unbelievable forest.
Once you leave the interpretive center at Cape Perpetua, you have lots of choices for hiking. And that's really the beauty of this place. Over 27 miles of hiking trails, about 11 different trails, and the wonderful thing is they're all at one point or another interconnected. So we've come from the forest and the interpretive center, now we're headed down to the beach. The Captain Cook Trail is wheelchair accessible, skirts the shoreline, and at low tide puts on quite a show that speaks for itself at Spouting Horn. Well, that's cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah, that's a great sound. Oh, woof. If you wish to wander longer, consider the astounding collection of Oregon State Park waysides, with names like Neptune, Ponsler, or Strawberry Hill, whose tide pools invite a closer view. And nearby Washburn State Park Campground invites you for an overnight stay. Winter campers are welcome in a tent, trailer, or RV, and for those without, try out a yurt.
You get a bunk bed, which actually sleeps 2 on the bottom, 1 on the top, futon, table, couple chairs with heat and light. Wintertime, just as exciting as in the summertime. You just have to deal with a little bit more rain, and it's quiet. You can kind of get a sight away from everybody else if you want.
Less than 5 miles away, another site requires a short stroll on a paved trail and then a quick ride down to sea level.
How far down are we going?
208 feet.
208 feet.
50 seconds. Sometimes I'll be in the elevator and they'll ask me, say, what does that mean? I said, that's miles per hour.
Sea Lion Caves has been an Oregon coastal icon as far back as anyone can remember. 100 acres of private ownership since 1887.
I think we can hear them.
A drawing card for the curious and largest sea cave along both coasts, where 250 stellar sea lions are a raucous, rowdy crowd.
They are very, very social animals. The barking that they do, they're crawling over each other, they're nipping each other. They're very social animals.
Up to 1,000 sea lions will use the cave at one time or another, lounging, loafing, or just plain sacking out. Protected from the elements, manager Boomer Wright says it's at least 10 degrees warmer inside than out.
That's the other entrance to the tunnel. The sea lions really don't use that for whatever reason, but it opens kind of just south of us. The main entrance, of course, is here, and that's where the sea lions always come in. And then, of course, the center rock is kind of what we call the king of the hill rock. They congregate there first for some reason. I guess it's for protection, but there's usually quite a bit of fighting and activity that goes on that rock.
The Stellars are not the only wildlife easy to spy. Back atop, keep sharp eye for soaring raptors on the hunt. Or shorebirds that dance and dazzle and skirt the surf. It is a remarkable scene and often overlooked in winter.
Without a doubt, it's the most gorgeous stretch of the Oregon coast. The rocky shores that eventually play out to the dunes, the geography, the geology, certainly the forest. It's just a place to relax, to wonder and wander if you want to.
Stay with us. It's dawn's first light for a bit of sage-grouse romance at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge when Grants Getaways continues. When sunlight cracks the horizon, Oregon's Malheur Wildlife Refuge is a marvel.
Okay, there's like another guy coming into the hands on the right.
When a bit of sagebrush romance is underway. It is a stunning strutting show as more than 24 sage-grouse meet on a communal breeding ground called a lek.
Loosely translated, a place to have a party.
Ecologist Steve Shunk and I join a not-so-camouflaged lineup. We're drawn to an intriguing show, male sage-grouse. They puff up their chests, strut by in regal fashion, and sound unlike anything you've ever heard.
I've never seen so many hens. There's at least 11 hens.
Shunk says the smaller, drabber hens will choose a mate, one rooster to rise above them all.
We have our own mating rituals and the way we get all primped up and wear fancy clothes and, go out on dates. But to distend your body and do the things that these guys are doing is something that most people don't have any perspective on. They don't even have anything to compare it to. It's a phenomenon that there's nothing like coming and seeing it in person.
Sometimes sage-grouse romance gets physical.
So if you're a younger male, you have to go into the center and challenge that older male.
Sage-grouse were once common in the high desert, but today their habitat's been reduced by half. So refuges and protected wildlife areas are critical to the bird's survival.
At least a dozen leks around the periphery of the refuge. Upland, but not just upland, but a little higher upland. And they need this big open sage flat. Very specific. The sagebrush has got to be real low like this. It's got to be fairly open flat.
That's because the grouse need to see predators like coyotes, bobcats, and foxes.
Now, when you take folks out for a day of birding, is this kind of the way you start your day?
Well, if they're willing to get up this early, then yes, we'll start here. I love being up at sunrise. You get to come up on the edge of the refuge, see this, and then travel through the wetlands. It's a nice, diverse nature experience.
Malheur Wildlife Refuge is nearly 200,000 acres of protection, divided into blocks of land and water. A stop at refuge headquarters is a must, not only to get your bearings, but also learn more about the many wildlife species that you'll see.
You'll be seeing a lot of large flocks, like the snow geese, sandhill cranes. A lot of people get really excited when they see those large numbers of birds in one little area. Being able to drive miles just on a tour, it's very unique.
And that brings us to one important outdoor tip.
Binoculars. Don't leave home without them. They make a huge difference as you're traveling these roads. And try to stay in the vehicle. What I've discovered is that the birds are pretty used to the traffic, but as soon as you step outside the vehicle, they flush in a heartbeat and they're gone.
Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife offers a wealth of wildlife viewing opportunities, including 25 state-managed areas. You can learn more about the Malheur Refuge, the wildlife, and local history during the annual John Scharf Migratory Bird Festival. It's held during the first full weekend in April and celebrates a place that will fill you with pride.
It's open, it's wide spaces. The solitude you're going to get when you come here is just something you're not going to get if you live in the big city. And you're going to still be able to hear coyotes, you're still going to be able to see the stars at night. And just being able to listen to the birds that we're listening to right now, and the wind blowing in the trees, and not seeing anyone is very special to some people. And it's a great opportunity to come see that.
Stay with us. It's a gathering of eagles, more than 100 of them, a wintertime eagle convocation, smack in the middle of the Willamette Valley when Grants Getaways continues. One of the most amazing wildlife moments is seen atop 4-story tall cottonwood trees near Tangent, Oregon. It's called an eagle convocation. The regal-sounding term seems fitting for up to 100 eagles that roost in the Linn County treetops each evening. Even more remarkable, this convocation of eagles didn't exist 5 years ago.
We've seen a wholesale increase, doubling and tripling of bald eagle numbers here in the southern portion of the Willamette Valley in the last 7-8 years.
For the past decade, retired wildlife refuge manager Jeff Fleischer has tallied a rapid rise in Oregon's wintertime Willamette Valley eagle population.
Each one of those dots represents a specific survey trail, close to 170 now.
Fleischer leads a raptor survey project, and he says the reason for more eagles in the Willamette Valley is their diet.
During the wintertime, a lot of sheep will die for various reasons, and the carcasses that are left in the field are what the eagles key on, without question.
Fleischer says the winter sheep population has grown because the types of grasses that farmers grow has changed. Grass like this can tolerate more winter grazing, and now the farmers can make more money.
That increase in sheep brought the increase of eagles, no question. And it's an easily accessible food source that keeps them from having to expend a lot of energy. It's that simple.
You may see them standing on the ground, you may see them perched in a tree, but when you find a group of them around these sheep carcasses, it's hard to miss.
Joel Geyer says the eagle viewing opportunities are spectacular and could bring even more visitors to rural towns in the Willamette Valley.
The strategy is really just to go along until you see bald eagles, because when there are bald eagles, you're going to notice them.
Geyer suggests that visitors follow the Willamette Birding Trail, which goes right past the eagle convocation in Linn County.
Most of the time, you don't really need fancy optics to see eagles because they're so big, but if you have good optics, you'll be able to see them better and you'll be able to watch other birds around too.
Steve Seibel enjoys taking photos of the birds and has documented their feeding behavior.
Typically, their birds will be displacing each other. One will feed for a while and then another will come by, and the food seems to be so abundant that they don't fight too hard to hold their position. Seems like they're living in the land of plenty here.
Geyer reminds visitors that etiquette demands you pull to the side of the road and not block private roads or driveways.
And even if there aren't no trespassing signs, you should be aware that almost everything, just 10 feet off the road is going to be private land here, and it's just expected that you aren't going to go wandering out on it.
Molly Monroe is a wildlife biologist. And she says there are 4 Willamette Valley wildlife refuges, like William Finley Refuge, that are fine public settings to see bald eagles too. Here, the eagles dine on abundant ducks, geese, and other waterfowl.
As long as you're finding those open bodies of water and places where there are ducks and geese around, it's almost a given that you see 1 or 2 throughout the year. The areas that hold the most waterfowl are great places to go and look for eagles, either perched or actively hunting. It's really nice to see their numbers back up and have them on a day-to-day basis. It's a treat for everybody to come out and have a good look at an eagle.
We have all the details, directions, and the contact information for all the segments in this week's show on the KGW website, so be sure to check it out. Finally, it has always been my hope that Grants Getaways helps people swell a bit with pride for all there is to see and do in our corner of the world. I want you to get out there and explore the great Oregon outdoors and let Grants Getaways be your guide. For KGW and Grants Getaways, I'm Grant McComey.
Grants Getaways on KGW is sponsored by Astoria Brewing Company, England Marine and Industrial Supply, and Fish Hawk Fisheries.